Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TSF Reviews. We are back, and we thought we would start off bringing back our media team with a special episode. Today, we will be discussing Squid Game. And I am sure a lot of you know about Squid Game. It's currently insanely popular. In fact, I think it's one of the most watched shows on Netflix right now, if not of all time. Like, it's a big deal right now. And before we get started, I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts. What are you guys looking forward to in this review?
Everything. Mainly the heartbreak, the pain, the betrayal.
Episode 6.
Oh, we're gonna get into that in a minute.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're gonna do in this episode, like we're not gonna go into full details of everything that happened in Squid Game because it's a lot to process, but we're gonna dissect the main thing of every individual episode and then come up with our thoughts about how everything came together. So
if you haven't
we're gonna
seen the show, watch it first because this is going to be spoiler.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the way.
If you have not seen the show yet, this is our spoiler warning. If you don't care, continue watching. If you haven't seen it yet or you haven't seen all the episodes yet, feel free to pause whenever we say the episode number that you haven't seen yet, and then continue watching after you've watched the particular episode. We will be naming the episodes we're discussing before we move on. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start with episode 1. Episode 1 was a very nice start to Squid Game, in my opinion. It built up why people were doing what they're doing, and the concept of the Squid Games was actually very interesting. And it seemed very simple at first until we saw the complete massacre of Game 1.
Oh, I did not know what to expect at that point. The moment that girl turned around and the shooting began, I was like, wait, what? This just picked up intensely.
Oh, I did not know anything about this going in. I mean, I didn't even watch the trailer. I'm like, everyone's watching. Everyone's like, Squid Game, Squid Game. I'm like, okay, let's watch it. And I'm like, okay, they're playing games. And then oh, they're playing games now.
Exactly.
For me, green light, red light, green light was kind of ruined by a Instagram account because they said that they were playing red light, green light, and they were playing it with paintball guns. Showing it, and I was like, okay, this game. When I was watching the episode and they said we are going to be playing red light, green light, and okay, so that's what
this is a trap.
Yeah, so it was kind of point for me, but still, the brutality of the killings were that was fun. And
so the one thing I would like to say about the first episode before we move on, actually, apart from the whole WTF moment that was the shootings that took place, it was actually a nice episode before the Squid Game thing even happened. Before what's the guy's name? I'm going to call him 456. I'm sorry, I'm going to call everybody by their player numbers because I have difficulty remembering their names.
Yeah,
That's all right.
So player 456's entire backstory as to the problems he was facing and why he decided to join the Squid Games, and the whole introduction to get them into joining is actually pretty unique. I actually like it. Just picking a simple game and then slapping them in the face, that was pretty fun. But then telling them to join the game and then how they basically find out about the games and everything is pretty interesting. But then the whole massacre happens, and that goes from probably a 6 to an 11,000 in a matter of 10 seconds.
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
And I think the stark contrast as in how many I think around 51% ish decided to go back to their real life. And then ultimately they came back to the game because they realized that, they're dying in their real life anyway. Life is just doomed for them to begin with whatever situation they're facing. I mean, every character had their own set of problems to begin with, but the root of all problems was lack of money.
Yep.
Exactly.
And they basically ended up realizing that like real life is doomed anyway. Why not just take the risk and at least get something out of it for my family or for myself or whatever their reasons were.
Exactly.
And at the
So
end of the day, that motive really made it relatable for all of us.
Yeah.
At some point,
exactly.
at
feel
some
like
level.
the- like,
broke millennials.
to be honest, like I am like not an avid K-drama watcher, but I definitely did have like a K-drama phase at one point. So when like Netflix blew up and like everyone is like, oh, Squid Game, so I'm like, okay, so like is this like another K-drama? Like is this gonna have like the typical like romantic cliches, or like what's going on here? And then like the general outflow, like when I started watching it, I realized, okay, this definitely has like that homey K-drama like vibe, like the man is struggling for his daughter. He loves his daughter. He has a mom who takes care of him, who loves him, but also hates him. Oh, this is going to be one of those wholesome dramas. And then like, I'm like, oh, okay. So some nice people decided to give them money and tell them that, hey, you know what, play these games and get money. And then the shooting happened. And I'm like, wait, what? What happened?
Okay.
So, it was shocking, but like I would say
Yeah.
that from all the episodes, episode 1 was very intense in my opinion.
I very much agree, because when it comes to like when you're trying to figure out what the show is about, episode 1 really hits the mark.
Yeah.
It really sinks you in, and that's what the first episode needs to do.
Yep.
So we're gonna move on now to episode 2, which in my opinion was the absolute most boring episode in the entire series.
I will stop you there. Boring
Very well.
in terms of no games, nothing like that. But in terms of character development, I think it was actually a very solid episode. Every single character gets their like, their entire like backstory just comes out, and you don't need them to do flashbacks or anything else in the rest of the series, because then they just take care of it, all of it right there, and just like, I don't need to worry about flashbacks now, because we see their motivations. There you go.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. But here's the problem that I have. The fact that they did not establish that well enough, like to properly incorporate it while doing the games, because it seemed really easy, in my opinion, that they were able to leave and then decide to come back. That just shows, okay, to show that the times were bad for them to come back. That makes sense. But the motivation after going through something that was episode 1 and then going to the development that was episode 2, that seemed like a drop, in my opinion. Made the next episode just slightly less entertaining in comparison to what episode 1 gave us. So that's my only complaint. It's a good episode in terms of story development as well as character development. But for going from shooting 255 people to going down to just talking about how bad their life really is, come on.
I think to be fair, like they did this well for once. Like most TV shows or movies, like when something intense is happening, like I don't know if you guys have watched Naruto, but whenever there is like an intense fight scene in Naruto, it's filled with flashbacks, like filled. And I'm just like, yo, I just want to watch the battle. Like I want to know what's happening right now. I don't really want to watch the flashbacks. So I feel like in terms of the narrating is done in one episode itself, like instead of putting it in between a game or in between something intense happening, kind of like slowed us down as well from the like shock of episode 1 and gave us a slow burn into episode 3 as well, when things started picking up again.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of like delayed gratification, they did that well in mind for like their audience.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it was a narrative on human nature, how our greed takes over, and at the end of the day, that's what runs us basically.
Yeah, but something that Vishnu was like, everybody left, right? And then exactly everybody came back. If they would have showed
except
like
for
some people,
4 people.
14.
Yeah,
14? Okay,
14 or
14.
I think.
No, they were from 201 to 187, so 14.
Okay, 187. I was thinking 197.
Yeah.
Okay, so 14 people, decided to stay back. And it was, the episode was very slow. Just, the pacing of it was very slow as compared to, obviously the story needed to go ahead and they made it so that way. But the pacing of the episode was very slow. They could have, since they don't have a time limit or they don't have exact time frame, they could have shortened the episode. Only.
Maybe.
I agree. So actually, one thing I wanted to bring up beforehand, yes, greed did control them when they joined. What made them come back was desperation.
Okay.
I think it was desperation to begin
Mixed-
with, and I
mixed
think
with
the
Yeah.
sort of greed that came up was after, it was like an after effect of the desperation they came in with, right? And ultimately that desperation brought them back. I mean, the 14
Yeah.
people who didn't choose to come back, probably that experience traumatized them way too much and made them realize that, like, you know, my life is too precious, or I don't want to die today. But the people who did come back ultimately were like, you know, I'd rather just do this at this point. I have nothing else to go back to, nothing else to work on.
On a lot of cases that was the situation. Number 67 actually, once again I apologize, I'm calling them by their numbers because I'm sorry, Korean names are very difficult for me to remember.
That's
So number 67's backstory was actually pretty sad, and I actually felt sorry for her when I found out her backstory. Like, it's crazy sad. And so I think it's Sunju, who's like player 242 or something like that. The guy who's the business school academic that
Sang-woo.
yeah. He was like, I am not gonna lie. As soon as I saw his backstory, I had a feeling he'd be a villain.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when we get there.
Yeah, we'll get
Really
there.
think
We'll
he
get
was
there.
a villain though? Like, do we really think he was a villain though? I mean, yes, he definitely was
man,
ruthless.
he was a villain after episode 6.
He was
I
a
was
villain in the
heartbroken too.
beginning.
I knew he was going to be ruthless, right? But that's the opinion. If you're put in a place where you are in so much debt that you're like, you know, that the loan sharks are after you, your mother could die, you could possibly die. I mean, wouldn't you, like, at that point, you know, try to, like, you know, save yourself out of the situation? And I don't know, like, I really hated what happened in episode 6. Don't get me wrong. I hated this character. I really did. After what he did, I do hate him, but I somehow, somewhat, for some weird reason, do see where he was coming from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he knew there was no other way. Like, even if he wasn't the one to kill them, they would die anyway. You know, he would just die in the process if, you know, he didn't kill them. There's only going to be one winner.
True.
So the thing was pretty much set for him at that point. He had to just do it. I mean, at that point, he felt like he had to. If not him, someone else, you know?
Okay,
for me, he was established as the villain, you know, soft villain in the honeycomb game. You know,
I was just about to get to that. I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I was just about to say it started to episode 3, which will give us evidence of him being a villain.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that.
He definitely was a villain. He could not bother to say, I figured out what the game is, and here's how you can survive for now. I agree with you. But the real villains are actually, well, you know, the people who actually made all this happen, orchestrated it, you know, instead of like just giving these people money. They're like, oh no, let's just watch you fight for it. Let's make like a Hunger Games scenario over here, you know, totally reminiscent of that, you know. Survival mode. So I mean, I would say they're the real villains here.
Actually, here's the thing. The thing about what this guy did that actually pissed me off. He forced the 4 people who decided to work together to split up to 4 different shapes, which was entirely stupid because he figured it out. Literally seconds before they announced the shapes, he figured out what the game was, and he forced people to spread out.
That was like.
Again, I'm not here to defend. I am not here to defend Sang-woo here, but I think at that point he only figured out this is a Dalgona game, and whoever gets the circle right or like the shape right will win. But I think he assumed that if like they diversified, they might be able to have better chances of winning. You know, I think definitely he had like a evil side to it where he wanted to like you know, to make sure he would win. But you see that he was surprised when his friend picked the umbrella, and he's like, why would you pick the umbrella? And then I'm like, stop him from picking the umbrella then, bro. Like, why aren't you saying anything?
And then he did say something.
I don't know.
He did call him out 4, 5, 6, and then he's like, yeah, nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. He's like,
he
you know what?
stopped himself.
I'd rather this man die right now than me killing him later. You know, let's just make it happen as soon as possible.
Now the honeycomb game, which was actually pretty fun. It was. actually a very intense game. And the way number 456 figured out how to release the umbrella from the cookie.
Oh my god.
Oh my
But
god, that was.
I have one problem with that game, and that was the
Go
use
ahead.
of the light. Sure, she was hiding under the slide. Okay,
Yeah.
but there was no camera angle that could see that, because later that we find out that the people who are betting on it are actually watching it, right?
Yeah,
In
of
their
course.
homes, right? So they have camera angles on
And they had
everyone
the
because
chest
they
cams.
have to, yeah, because they have to bet on everyone. They could bet on the girl as well. Okay, so, and she had no cameras on it that it was showing that she had the lighter. And okay, fine, she was under the slide, but when she dropped the lighter to the guy, he was not under the slide and he was still using it. And
Also,
there were so many people around, but nobody saw it.
Yeah.
There was sort of something that I couldn't digest.
yeah, that was weird. Also, every time you use a lighter under a dark slide, it's gonna light up. People are gonna notice the flash. People are gonna look at
Exactly.
that. Like your eyes are
Her
naturally
face
drawn.
was lighting up. Her eyes was lighting up.
Yeah,
Her
exactly.
face
So
was lighting up.
your eyes would be drawn to that.
I mean, I wouldn't expect the other players to notice because they were life and death. They had to accomplish their thing with severe focus and get it done in the timeline. But
But
I
you
did
think
not
the
expect
staff
the
would know?
guards to miss
the
it.
staff, yeah, the staff would definitely.
Yeah, like the staff.
the
Like
staff.
they should have noticed. Like if not her, then the guy. I agree with Sohaib over there. And when it comes to betting, I feel like the people hadn't started betting yet because there still were a lot of contestants. I think they would only bet
Maybe.
when they know how many people have survived those trials, and then they could place a fair bet depending on how they played the first few games, and when the party had narrowed down significantly.
Maybe.
That could be the reason why maybe it wasn't the focus at that point. But definitely there was some plot armor there. I would have to agree.
Also, one tiny thing before we move on to the next episode. What was that guy thinking? The guy who started doing his puzzle, well, not the puzzle, but the game on the top of the slide. Out of all the places where he could have sat, he's like, I want to sit on the top of the slide. And then he had to get a cameraman with him, obviously. And the guy was like watching him the whole time at the top of the slide. And then when he gets shot and he slides down, I started laughing.
Didn't his get broken because of the distraction or something? Like something happened and that was unfortunate.
I laughed. I when I saw the body slide, I'm like, why would you even go
for that scene? It was for that scene.
Yeah.
It looked like a Tarantino movie there, seeing like the shot going down the slide.
He's like, hey, I'm gonna have more focus up here on the slide, away from everyone. That tracks. That totally tracks.
Yeah.
And then, well, he really slid it down there, didn't he? So.
Yep.
So I think that's mostly it for episode 3. There was nothing majorly special apart from this. So moving on to episode 4, which built up a particular segment, alliances per se.
Yeah.
So we started seeing these nice sets of alliances between members, and we had Sangwoo, we had player 456, we had player 1, we had Ali. I think his
199.
Shout out to our Pakistani dude, 199.
Yep.
Shout out to our Pakistani dude as well.
Shout out to
Can I
Indian
just say,
actor.
coming to Ali, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I really appreciated that they made sure the dialect was Pakistani Urdu. Can I just say I really appreciate that?
Yeah,
There's this
I
one scene
will give you that. That was actually very good.
Yeah, shout out to the
that was
Indian
when I
actor.
pictured that this guy probably isn't an Indian character. It's highly likely he's probably a Pakistani character or an Indian Muslim. But later on, he confirmed his nationality on the show, and I was like, no, I really appreciate they didn't do they stuck with the Urdu dialect from from him being from Pakistan and all. I big appreciate that.
Shout out to that Indian actor, because usually it's the opposite, because we get Pakistani actors playing Indian roles. This time it's the opposite, and a big shout out to him. He did it well. I mean, wow, we like that.
And before the game 3 that happened, there was a riot.
Yeah, which was very interesting.
It was seriously. I grabbed my neck as soon as the first kill happened. Like, oof, that is not a way to go.
That was not the way to go.
Which really like made me think that the author definitely had to draw out some inspiration from Hunger Games. And Hunger Games like was inspired by, I don't know if you guys have read this book, but there's this book called Battle Royale by Koshin Takumi.
I have watched the
like
movie.
the same. The book is really good. Like it would come under my top 10 books of all time that I've read that I really enjoyed. And it was very reminiscent of that. They do want to make it survival mode. They do want to, have some entertainment or whatever their twisted reasons for this were. And I feel like the author definitely drew inspiration from that. And I think the reason why this show is like the most watched show on Netflix as of today is because they didn't go with the common themes of whatever's been going on. I mean, you don't really see shows like these to begin with. The different themes, the survival theme, like along with the societal themes of, debt and misery and the relatable content made it much more of a good watch. I think like this shouldn't be missed. I mean, everyone should watch this show, my opinion. They did it really well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So moving on, there's still more to episode 4 because episode 4 had a lot going on in it. We had the bad guys and good guys like identified at this point. I'm gonna say one thing though. Player 101, I've hated that guy since the very beginning, and it pissed me off that he survived this long. And
just to go with identifying 101, who was 101? Because we know him by
he was that thug guy with the snake tattoo.
The gangster,
the gangster, pissed me off. He pissed me off from the very beginning, from the very
for someone
first
of his
episode.
nature to survive this long. I mean, like it does make sense with his nature, being that he already had that sort of lifestyle. I think that he was more accustomed to things as compared to most of the other players.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree with that. It still pisses me off considering his personality, his attitude, how he betrayed a certain someone. And
I actually enjoyed his character. I did hate him, especially in the riot scene, but I really enjoyed his character. He was like a typical cliche, but like a good part of the addition of the show. I mean, he was a good actor too. Yeah. I found his expression hilarious whenever he was pissed.
I agree. I love that the character made me hate him, but it doesn't change the fact that I hate him.
One thing in particular to note is that if they had taken him out of the games too early, we would not have enjoyed that. We would be like, no.
Oh, we would not have enjoyed.
Yeah,
we would not have enjoyed game 5 particularly.
Oof.
Because this man was in my head. I'm like, when is this man going to die? Like, I want to see him die a painful and miserable death. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Yeah. And every single day I see him survive. I'm like, oh my God, just die already. But like stay, but like just die more, at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another side, story that they went with was the doctor story.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That was very interesting. We also got to see the actual like gruesome evilness of the person in gray, the front man. And I absolutely loved it. His motivation for why the Squid Game is a thing. Well, we're calling it Squid Game, but although Squid Game is technically spoiler. But all in all, the personality of this person was absolutely amazing. His motivation, the why everything is happening, it was perfect. Sure. And one last thing before we move on to episode 5, the tug of war, game 3.
Okay.
It starts towards the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
And
let me say straight up right over here, because of what we know right now, what happens in episode 6 and the real motivations and all that, why would that person, we'll get there when we get there, why would that person risk it all on whatever team this was? Why wouldn't, like, how, I don't understand how that would have happened any other way, like if this team wasn't there. Like, you know what I mean, right? That particular player risking it all.
Yeah. I get it, but the thing was that he, as explained later on, he was into playing more than just spectating.
Exactly.
Maybe.
And he
No,
was
we'll get to that. We
Yeah.
will get
Yeah.
to that.
yeah, and the motivation was pretty clear because he was dying anyway. So
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
I
spoiler
mean, it
technically, but
also explained
He's-
why.
he's- Yeah.
I mean, like in the riot episode, why they stopped. You know,
yeah, he was the reason why they stopped. But
pretty
also,
much that he would have had some cushion to begin with, regardless.
Yeah.
now, for some reason, I can't fill the gap of episode 5. I know episode 5 ends with the team with the main 5 already winning, and I don't really remember what happened. Oh yeah, I remember now. It's like mostly investigation
Yeah.
of what happens before the upcoming game. We see the detective
Yeah.
basically getting information about what happens within the organization. And while we are in this episode, I am going to just say one thing, which I will discuss later in the next few episodes.
Mhm.
This detective was the most pointless thing in the entire series, except for exposition.
Well, yeah, that's what it was. I feel that
Maybe
they
it's
could.
just-
I feel like
No, please continue.
yeah, the game where they lose a player due to outside the rules sort of thing. I feel that at that point he should have been caught and put into his place.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
then it
totally
would have
agree.
balanced the 40 people out at that point. That would have made perfect sense. I would have said, "Yep, you lose
But then-
you lose a player, you get a player. That's how it works."
But then comes this other thing. In episode 2, we find out that he's looking for his brother who's been missing for a while, and he hadn't filled in a missing persons report yet. So he's apparently missing for a while, and we find out that he was a part of the Squid Games 8 years
He was a winner.
before. Yeah, he was a winner 8 years before this current game ever happened. Considering that the information showed that they had a game every year. So if he won 8 years ago, why is he filing a report in 2021? Where did he disappear? When did he disappear?
He must have disappeared
Yes.
recently because of the landlord coming in and saying that this guy's skipped out on rent.
Yeah, we don't they don't give us an information about the gap,
Yeah,
like in between of that kind of disturbs me a little bit.
but
Just a little bit.
I think what they were trying to do with that
feel-
misdirect was they try to make us think that this person won the game and then they were desperate enough or they lost all their money that they had to come back this time around. I think that was what they were trying to imply.
Yamuna, you wanted to say something?
They try to give it a
Um,
misdirect with the dead body,
Mm.
Yeah.
with the one with the liver, but it would turn out it was a girl. There
Mhm.
would any misdirects for that, but at the end of the day, what is it?
Yeah. So
Oh,
Yamuna,
I like definitely assumed like when his brother went missing, I was like, okay, maybe his brother's one of the staff. He probably runs into him there. Hey, brother, what's up? You're missing. But I feel like they've left the mystery of like you get the idea that even the staff, like the anonymity, and at some point even they're kind of being coerced or being incentivized to do this. And they haven't really gone into the backstory of the front man or the staff in season 1. If they are going to do a season 2, that's going to pave the way, I think. If they delve deeper into the construct behind Squid Game and what's going on, I think they wanted to leave some mystery, like for us there to be all, oh, what happens here? Like, what's the backstory here?
yeah.
But I will agree that the brother was like a very unnecessary addition at this point. But I mean, they had to
Mhm.
get some other perspective in there, like an investigative perspective in there for us.
True.
So I think that's why they brought
Yes.
him in.
I will say that he had one purpose. I will get to that when we get to that episode. But now, everybody, clench onto your chests. We're now talking about episode 6.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Sango needs to die an infernal death. I just want to
Yes.
say this and that's it.
This
Okay.
this is the point. This is the point where he went from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader.
At the beginning of this game, I was like, when they talked about the game, I'm like, yo, this is gonna happen. This is okay. One thing though, I don't know if this is us because we've watched so much media and all that, like, but some of these stuff that you could see the spoilers before the spoilers actually happen. It's like it was set up in that way. Like you'd see it there, you'd predict it, and then it will show, it would become
Yes,
that.
there are these little hints that show you that yes, this is going to happen. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But like, unless you like pay very close attention, you do not pick up on it. So yeah, I agree with you. It's theirs, and you kind of saw it coming.
Yeah.
But Ali's betrayal was not the only betrayal in this episode. The other episode is the relationship between 1 and 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Okay, so
I thought
here's
that
what I picked up.
I saw
No,
that
please
happening
continue.
as well. Okay, I'm like, yeah, there's no way this guy just started getting dementia right now as the game has started. There's something up.
Yeah.
And the spoiler alert, when they did not show the body, I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
same here, exactly.
Why? I'm like,
Exactly.
Interesting
No body,
fact.
no death confirmed.
Interesting fact. I actually had a conversation with Sohaib a while ago before I started watching episode 7. And I told him, I noticed something very interesting. Every death in the series was on screen except for his. Right? So I brought up a very interesting theory, which I'll bring up in a later episode.
Yeah.
And I said that this is most likely the case. So towards the end, as soon as I finished the series, I was told, I found out I was right. So we're gonna go on to this. I want to say a moment of silence for Ali for his noble sacrifice.
Can I just add that Ali's wasn't the only sad death there. Even the married couple, they had to fight each other, and one of them died. And even the girl, like with
the girls,
number 240.
I cried with the girls.
I cried.
The girls made me cry. Ali's betrayal did not. Yes. It's like the girls made me cry. I'm like,
no.
Yes.
See, Ali's death was not sad. It was more infuriating than sad.
Okay.
Because you were furious.
No, Ali's death broke me. Ali's death broke me because this man managed to hang on to his purity. Throughout all of this, while this game made so many others ruthless, he hung on to his purity and he wanted to save his friend, the guy who paid for his bus fare. But he ended up dying. So Ali's death was a very heartbreaking one. It pissed everyone off, but I couldn't get past the couple, like the man losing his partner and even like the girl dying. That girl was such an interesting character.
The girl not only dying, but the girl through the game.
Yeah.
And by the way, she did say that she would let her win in just before the game. She's like, we stick together. I'll let you win. And I'm like, yep. And when this game started, I'm like, yeah, she's gonna sacrifice herself. That's the only way it has to happen. It has to happen.
She even mentions her reasoning was mostly because she had nothing left in the real world. She at least number 67 had her little brother and everything, and possibly her family getting together. Stuff like that. So this was actually very good for the episode. The episode actually developed the character very well and actually made things sad for us for this particular character. And that's mostly it for episode 6. This was very possibly the saddest episode in this entire series. But then we move on to what could be episode 7, VIPs. Yeah. Episode 7 is the VIP episode. Is when the VIPs arrive. That's where the episode gets weird.
And that's where the series starts taking a slight dip, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, now before we continue this episode, I actually have a very stupid question. Before the tug of war, there were 80 players. And after the tug of war, there were 40 players. The doctor died. There are 39.
Yes.
Everybody goes into teams of 2, which means 19 teams, and 1 person got left out.
Yes.
That's another problem I'm going to deal with. After that, there should have been 19 players. Why were there only 16?
Yeah, that was a slight error that wait. Yeah, 18 plus 1, or was it 16 plus 1?
No, it should have been. There should have been 20 players actually, because one
No,
player.
yes, but here's the thing.
The girl was left out.
No, there should have been 20 players left. Yeah, there should have been 20 players left actually, because there's 38 people went into teams and 1 person was left. So 19 people should have survived, and with plus 1 should have been 20. We find out before game 5 there were 16.
Only 16.
So yeah, so I think 2 teams entirely did not survive.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they tied or they ran out of time and they were both shot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, like
okay.
how Sang-Woo said, the struggle would be whether they even decide who the winner is going to be at the end. I mean, I think that's how they died.
Yeah. Okay, now before we continue episode 7, I just want to say one thing. Again, the stupid, pathetic player 101 won by a technicality in episode 6. And it pissed me off once again.
No, but that was the nature of his character, right? He was a criminal. He has to pull the game his way somehow.
He didn't pull the game his way. It was pure luck.
No.
It was pure luck. And I honestly enjoyed watching his frustration get the best of him. Like, he was panicking.
His henchman was about to win. If that stupid rock wasn't there to tip the marble over and hit the other guy's marble, he would have lost.
He would have, yeah, definitely.
The thing that, episode 6 was so, the good people were dying and the bad people were surviving, and that, built up so much feelings for us, because Ali died, the old man died, the girl died, and everybody, was dying that we were caring about. And then there was this guy, which we hated and wanted to die, but he survived. And it was like, that's why it was so frustrating. But at the end of episode 6, you have so many feelings that time. Okay. And then episode 7 comes around, and then, all those feelings kind of disperse away.
Yeah.
Except for the hatred for Sang-Woo, because that remains forever.
Yeah.
Other than that, kind of, it's kind of, fades into different paths, because it was an indifferent episode for me.
Yeah.
The VIPs.
So now back to episode 7. Game 5.
Game 5, I disagree with entirely as a concept. Before we start,
I totally agree with you, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
It's pure luck based. It's there's no game. It's like it's either you choose this or you choose that. There's no game. I mean, it is, there is tension. You're now thinking what's going to happen next. But as a game, I don't feel it was a game. That was like slow torture.
I would agree with you there. It wasn't practically a game, but I think the point of game 5 was to bring in more quote unquote drama and to, increase the survival mode of the players.
Yeah.
How far would they go at this point to escalate their emotions to, and basically more like shock value for the VIPs who are betting on them. I think at that point.
Also, shouldn't the VIPs have gotten a better seat? I mean, they had to use binoculars to see their players. Like, you'd think that
you were looking at that rather than the fact that they had individual furnitures and people as furnitures.
Well, they're showing evil people, so that's like expected. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's on brand.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all watched it with the Korean audio and subtitles, right? The show.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did.
Yep.
Okay. Can I just say that the Korean dialect was more passionate and natural as compared to the English those VIPs were speaking? Was it a spirit that did not seem kind of, I don't know, forced or artificial? Or was it just me? I'm generally asking here because I really felt like the way they were speaking was very odd. Like the tone and the style of speaking.
I actually have a theory for this. I get what you're trying to say. I actually have a theory for this. The the thing I'm understanding is that mostly because the dialect of Korea is actually at a particular length, and what they have for dialogue in US based is actually much less in terms of what they say in terms of Korean. So like possibly more, this is mostly my opinion, and possibly I may be wrong, but I'm just saying the number of syllables in a statement of a full sentence is way more in Korean than it is in English. So my opinion, that was the word I'm looking for. I totally forgot the word I was looking for. I'm going to say opinion. This is not the right word, but I'm just going to use it. It's that they extended their wording in English to match the pacing as it is for the Korean dialect. And that's why it sounded off.
I just thought they were foreigners. I'm like, yep, that's how this works. You know, the actors are foreigners, so let's good.
I mean, you do assume there are foreigners, but we've seen multiple shows where foreigners do speak in English. I don't think the accent was the issue, nor was like the script. I think it was just the way it was spoken. It seemed a tad unnatural. Most of them had the same tone of voice, the same. But maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's just something that I caught, you know. And I think I do agree with Amar here that they did kind of like Korean, like this so condensed, like you know, with in terms of syllables and words being fit into them. I guess so. Yeah, I see where you're coming from here.
It's not entirely correct. I read nothing that says that this is the case. It's just my observation and what I've noticed. Yeah, this is my understanding and from what I've noticed. But I do agree with you.
Moving on.
Nothing special in episode 7. Mostly it's literally life or death, step or die.
Yeah. With
the glasses being either plexiglass or regular plain glass. But the only good thing this episode came out of this episode is that stupid number player 101. Finally, finally.
I have to say the most satisfying death I've seen on TV for a while. The most satisfying. I was like, yes, that's how you should die, bro. Like
it was already frustrating that he cheated death in every other game, and we finally see him die.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what they say: if you cheat death and your girlfriend, they're gonna come for you at the end.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a very interesting trick. Actually, I saw a meme that they related that particular scene to when the Cyberman killed Yamcha in Dragon Ball Z.
I saw that meme.
Oh. So yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Nothing special in this episode, but except for one thing, we finally see how I will pronounce the name wrong. Sangwoo. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we finally see how much of a dick he is.
Okay.
We already saw that in episode 6. Ji-hoon saw it in this episode. Yeah. We already seen it in episode 6.
Oh yes, I agree with you. But this is where we actually see that he not only cared about himself to survive, he cared about cheating with Ali to survive the game. But at the point of episode 7, it was no longer the case of surviving. It was more the case of just getting it over with. It was more he no longer cared that they wanted to survive the game in order to survive and play further and eventually win the money and get out of here. It was more like he got so fed up. He finally cracked and no longer cared for the life of others.
I don't think he did care for the life of others to begin with. I think he came into this game with the perception that I have to win. But given like his mentality at that point, that had escalated. Like the games had really messed with his mentality at that point, where he realized exactly he just had to play to win. But I mean, I would have to say that I don't know. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but the guy ended up kind of redeeming himself. I'm not saying for what he did to Ali. But the thing is, when he realized that Gi-hun was not going to be taking the money and he was not going to be winning, he was just going to back out, he killed himself.
Yeah.
And you realize that his motivation wasn't actually for him to survive. It was for his mother to be okay. You realize it right then, because if he really did care about his life at that point, I don't think he would have killed himself at that point.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm just going to kill myself here. You win. Make sure my mom is taken care of. And for me, that just made me realize that his motivations were, they made sense. I mean, his actions were not making sense to me at all, and I hated him for it. But I think that was a redeeming point for that character, which is why I think that in terms of being a good character for this show, he was a really great character. Even if you don't like him, he was a good character.
He
I feel
was.
like he's basically, he was.
And
I
something
will
that I would
agree
like to
with
add-
you, but before I say anything, does anyone else want to say anything? I have one thing to say, but after everyone else is done.
Yeah, I just want to say something that I think that will transition into episode 8 as well.
Mhm.
That was the detective finally going into the room with the VIP and then injuring the VIP and then running away. Now they made such a big deal about the VIPs being the VIPs they were. It was not discussed, shown, talked about after that in the entirety of the season that one of the VIPs got injured by a person who was an intruder, and sure they took care of him, but still there was an intruder on the set, and that intruder injured a VIP, and it was not talked about. It was not mentioned again. The VIP was again, watching the final, and I don't know, nothing happened.
Yeah. The concept of
I-
VIPs to begin with was weird. Like, only
Yeah,
6 of them. It didn't.
There's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in episode 9.
Okay.
But another transition to episode 8. This actually brings back the point that I wanted to say. Yes, I will agree with you that he does redeem himself, but does that make up for killing 67?
Oh no, I never said it did. I started my point with it does not. It does not. But the thing is, I genuinely thought of him as a very purely selfish character who only cared about his survival. Right? I didn't really consider into account his situation. At that point, I hated him so much that I was like, no, screw you. Like you're such a heartless person. How could you do that? But when he did end up killing himself, and I realized that his motivations were just to make sure his mom was okay. He was only concerned about her at that point.
Yeah. But also, what happened to 67 was totally on the game makers. That is, why is that technical fault on her? Well, not on her, but why would they not address it? They hurt her, the game makers, with that blowing up the glass thingy. Why did that have to affect her? I mean, I see it for plot, but then
That wasn't the only thing that killed her, though. What killed her was the final stab on the neck.
No, she was already blood loss and all
She
that.
was already dying.
Yeah,
she was already
dying.
dying.
She was already dying.
Yeah,
She
I mean,
wasn't
that is a
dying.
factor. If she was healthier, if she had not had that wound, she probably would have made it to the final game. But oh well, it
And
makes
you notice that
sense.
67's motivations do kind of change at that point. You realize that she was also going in there to kind of be ruthless and win. But I think after her encounter with the girl who basically ended up sacrificing herself, she basically told Gi-hun not to kill Sang-woo. And I'm surprised that she did that. That was character development on her part.
I agree. I
At the
totally
beginning
agree.
of the show, I would think that she would have gone stabby stab on everyone if she had the chance.
Yeah.
But she's like, no,
Honest-
don't go stabby stab. Leave him alone. Don't do that. She didn't want Gi-hun to lose his quote unquote purity. I don't know why I
His
keep saying
purity.
the word purity, but yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I would honestly say that number 67 had the most character development in the entire series, because number 4, 5, 6 is debt-ridden. He is a bit of a scum, but even in the beginning, he's shown to have a good heart. He did not want people to die, and that carried forward throughout the entire series. He did not have development per se, except for maybe intelligence.
Okay.
I would argue that. But in terms of proper
Intelligence
character
and
development,
ruthlessness to a certain
Yes.
extent. Ruthlessness
would exist on anyone when you're angry. His ruthlessness did develop, because at first he was scrawny. He would be in the beginning, in the first episode, when the debt collectors attacked him, he was scrawny. He did not bother fighting back. He fought back in Squid Game. I would say that's his only development, and the fact that of his intelligence throughout most of the games, how he handled the games.
I mean,
But-
at that point, I won't even say it was ruthlessness. It was more of him standing up for himself and being assertive in a very gentle manner.
That is his only development. But if we look at number 67,
I
she
agree with you.
had a lot more development. She was initially a pickpocket. We knew that she had a brother that was in a housing home. She had parents captured and deported. She had a very tragic backstory, and she went from being a thief to being more kind-hearted as well. She had a complete 180 in her development throughout the entire series because of what she witnessed in the friendship she had with 240.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was actually the best part, and I was unfortunate to see her go. But now that we are in episode 8, I will bring up a point that I said in the previous episode 5. The only reason the detective was there was to reveal the front man.
Yeah. Also, they did hint that episode before or something, they did mention the actor's name. Like, I know I'm not as handsome as the actor's name, and I'm like, yo, why would they say that? I mean, that's such a random thing. And then when he reveals his face, I'm like, the actor. Okay, there you go. I'm like, that's
Nice.
the only reason why they would do that. And I'm like, okay, okay.
They do give away hints, but again, unless the detective is alive, which is very likely because nobody. The plummet was very far from the rocks. If you saw that wave in the ocean, shoulder. It was only a shoulder shot.
Yep.
Yeah, I think his brother did that intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when the front, like I think we pretty much all figured the front man was going to be his missing brother. It was going to be him, as per cliche. But I'll continue on this point after we're done discussing the final episode, because that's what this paves into.
Yeah.
I think we should because I think nothing finale happened and it was what it was. I think
we're up to episode 9 now.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing special in episode 8 apart from the conflicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So episode 9 is where we see the Squid Game. And I'll be honest, it was intensely fun to see that fight. It was so good. It was so fun. And did not expect that Mortal Kombat Dragon Ball Z Korea version fight with the knives in the sand. Like, if you get rid of Saiyan powers and all of a sudden like get regular people to do Mortal Kombat, that's what the fight was in Squid Game.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. That fight was so fun. And when it comes to the physical developments of 4, 5, 6, this is where it's shown the most. And that's what I loved.
Yeah, the ending was good too. Overall, him wanting to end the game at that moment, give up the money, and him, wanting to kill himself just, for his mother. So it was all good. It was all fun. It made sense. It made sense according to the characters. It wasn't overdone till that point, and I think it was fun. It was fun till us. Till that point, I think the episode was fun.
Yeah.
Before I say anything further, Yamna, do you have anything to add?
Okay, let me think. I was a little infuriated. Okay, wait, episode 9 is the last episode, right? Because I think I'm losing track of the episode.
It's the last episode.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I was a little bit annoyed when he decided to not go to his daughter at that point. But I realized why he did it based on the trauma he's experienced, and he wants to he had that survivor's guilt in him. So he did what he could over there. And I think this really does pave the way for season 2. I feel like if they do a season 2, I'm not sure what they've announced yet, but if they do, I think it's going to go more into the detective survival. And I guess it's going to be him working with detective, trying to figure out what's going on, how to break the inner workings of this circle. I was really happy to see the old man die though. I rooted for this man in the beginning. I felt helpless for him when he looked helpless. And after that, I'm like, yes, please. I'm so sorry, old man, die. I never thought I would ever think these thoughts in my head at this point in my life, but there I was saying, oh yes, please die, go.
See, on that part,
and this brings back the point that I said in episode 7 where I messaged Sohaib. His death was the only death off screen Therefore, and also another scene that I did not tell Sohaib, but I also noticed, which is what made me get to thinking, when they showed that bunny rabbit VIP.
Yeah, his hand was like an old man's hand. I noticed that too.
Old man hand. That was the giveaway.
The moment they stopped the show, like when you see the guy hesitating and he's like, okay, stop the riot now. And that's when I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then it pretty much, when you don't see him die, you just know that like he's gonna come back at some point. Something is gonna happen here.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so when I found out that he was the host, I'm like, boo, yeah, called it. But it also made me feel like, yeah, I've seen too much stuff and things have gotten predictable for me.
I had the
Like
same
generally, I think we all expected it at that point. We're like, oh, yep, it was the old man. Yeah, that was your brother. That was a missing brother. We all knew that Gi-hun was gonna survive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Moment
obviously, the moment the show started, you're like, he has to survive. Why would they even show that much of him? In
Well,
the
why
first
would they
episode?
focus a lot more on him comparatively if he wasn't going to survive?
Exactly. And then like the main
My heart
characters, you're like,
wanted
all
Ali
of
to
these people are
survive.
yeah.
My heart wanted Ali to survive. My heart wanted like 67 to survive. My heart wanted the girl who sacrificed herself to survive. I wanted the couple to survive. You know, like I got really attached at that point. But yeah.
Honestly, yeah, that moment back in episode 6 where they team up and have marbles and we find out they have to face each other, that was like an oh my god moment.
Yeah, that was.
Like that's just mean.
And about the episode, and I think the ending from the part of the final game ending till the ending moment, the pace very
Drops.
suddenly declined.
Yeah,
Drops.
I feel that.
The pace did die. Yeah.
But that is reminiscent of most Korean dramas. Go on.
Exactly.
I actually haven't seen a lot. This is probably my first, so I wouldn't know that. But still, the point was that if you really want to show an epilogue sort of stuff, you really need to either compartmentalize and reduce the length of the epilogue, or otherwise pace it up a little bit.
Yeah,
the pacing really dropped. There was a lot of staring onto stuff that I don't think was needed.
Yeah. Also, one thing I need to add here is I feel that if they wanted to make a season 2, they should have had Gi-hun have like PTSD and then not touch the money like he wasn't doing already, and then want to go back to the games again. That addiction, that thing, it should have somehow, that's one way I see they could have done it, led to a season 2. Have him want to go back and then just keep doing that for the rest of his life. Instead of...
Is that going to be a typical thing? We already saw that Gi-hun was the most human of all of them at that point, apart from Ali.
At the end, would it not have been, I don't know, better for the pacing and plot that if he wants to go back, if he's that, that addicted to that pain?
I don't. I think it really hurt him to watch people die. The thing is, they are making him go back, but for other reasons. It's to take the front man down, is to break the system, basically. Because his encounter with the old man basically fueled him up to do that. I mean, I think he was in his PTSD for a while, and then he met the old man. He snapped out of it, and he's like, I'm going to avenge whoever's died. So survival's guilt really took a toll on him. And yes, it was really slow paced. It was dragging, but I think they wanted us to see that he was suffering. He wasn't doing so well despite everything.
It's a very typical K-drama sort of thing where the finale is always this dragged out. I've seen a bunch of shows where they do this. Like the one, it's something that they do. That's why I was like okay with it.
No, this is a terrible comparison, but a lot of anime that deal with the same thing tend to do that too, and that's probably, in my opinion, is probably just because they either want to build up suspense for another season, or they feel like they want to cover more ground to properly end it, and they want to drag around some scenes just to add more emphasis to the scene.
Maybe. Also, with K-dramas, we tend to see that they are like a one and done sort of deal. They like, I mean, this one, because this blew up, maybe they'd come for a season 2, but usually they like, once they end it, they're like, yeah, this is it. This is the end.
Mhm.
Here's your long ass finale, but this is the end.
Yeah.
I am
Personally,
Like
I'm
K-dramas
calling it-
usually like
I'm
to go
calling
with
it right
the
now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm calling it right now. They're going to Money Heist.
I mean, did they not already with those
Yeah.
red jumpsuits?
Yamna, what do you have to say, Yamna?
What did I want to say? Oh yeah, like continuing Mubarak's point, K-dramas usually have this whole thing where like it's the plot ending and then it's the character ending. They have 2 endings usually. It's like, oh, the main
Mhm.
plot's over for the characters, and then they just give you some comfort scenes about how the characters are doing personally without any of the like
The
thrill
plot.
of the plot, hanging around them. And then they just end the show on, yeah, okay, like they're doing good or like they're doing bad, but they've either been okay with it or they're going to be okay and they're fine. So yeah, I agree with him there. But yeah.
So before we get to final scores, I'm going to give one last statement. If there is going to be a season 2, and although I prefer there wouldn't be, I at the same time wouldn't mind it if they go for an approach similar to, like, say, a mixture of Keanu Reeves and John Wick meets Liam Neeson from Taken. Like he hunts down this organization and tries to tear it up from the inside. As another game is happening, we see it happening in the background, but it's focused more on trying to eliminate from the inside, like the detective. He meets up with the detective. They go infiltrate back in, figure out the stuff, and then he goes all commando on everybody and figures it out.
Okay, that could work.
I personally would like a season 2, but I wouldn't mind it being in a different country and watching the themes of different children's games, like killing people at the end. That would be entertaining.
They did
Because they did mention,
that. Yeah.
they did imply at some point it does happen in different countries. I mean, that would be interesting as well. The whole system, how it goes. Like,
I'd say that would be better for me.
Yeah, that would work. That would work quite nicely,
Yeah.
Bring it to Pakistan.
it could
You
be
would
like some sort of
have,
anthology series, like season 1 could be Korea, season 2 could be another country, season 3 could be another country.
Yeah.
If they play it well, if they do it well.
Wैसे, could you imagine a Pakistan Squid game, which one of the games is just Panju Kabutar Doli?
No, just imagine one scene. Chidiya udi, kawa uda, guy udi.
Exactly.
Or like, or Pitti, hey, like play Pitti and like.
Okay, you guys play
die.
that game. I've never heard of that game
Or-
before. Okay.
I don't know. Or I had this random idea like Baraf Pani or something. if you stayed like Baraf for too long, you'll get shot.
That could work.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's
I
a
mean,
lot of games.
personally, in my childhood, we played Ice and Water. We played Pitti. Pitti is like, I don't know, you stack like a bunch of tiles, and then you kind of hit it with like stones and see like how many you can drop. Or
That would
something.
be the equivalent
yeah.
of the marble game. That would be the equivalent
That'd
of
be
the marble.
the marbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much in Marvel.
Which is why I feel like an anthology series, like bringing in different cultures and different themes and different games, like would be really interesting to watch.
On that
I wouldn't
part,
personally.
why would the Korean headquarters, I'm not going to call it headquarters, why would the Korean island have all the records of all the previous games then? That was one thing that was, if they are doing this in different countries, they have all the records in Korean in that room.
No, I feel
But
like
why?
I feel like this program is like every country has its own series going on, like in parallel. Like that's what I understood from it.
Okay.
Korea
I
had
want
one
to
last
agree to
year.
that.
I feel
Which part?
that's what I got out of it. Like I see where Mubarak is coming from, but I also got the idea that this happens every year or like every other year, but it happens in other countries as well at the same time.
You
In
see, if it's
parallel.
all on the island, I don't believe there are different games, because in episode 8 we noticed that the wall had all 6 games on it.
Maybe we weren't looking
On the-
before.
Yeah.
And
If you
didn't they point out that there were bombs in the island to go off? Like, as in once the game ended, they would just destroy every evidence. Like,
No, that
What
would be
was
for
that? They never used that.
Yeah, they never use it. Also, that I think they implied that in case of emergencies, the VIPs would get out and then they detonate the island to remove evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways,
Okay,
final
guys, the
scores.
score.
Okay, final scores. Mubarak, you first.
7.5.
7.5.
Taken down because of the weak finale, like the character finale,
Mhm.
rather than plot finale. That was, I mean, it's a K-drama, but then I took half a point down for that. Otherwise, it was an 8 for me. 7.5.
Sahib?
Same, 7.5. Exactly the 0.5 down for the finale. It was a disappointing ending for me. 7.5.
Mm-hmm. Yamna?
This started off really good for me, but then
Mhm.
I think I'd go with an 8. Because I personally did not mind the ending. I feel like we were so used, like we were getting like a constant dose of like rushes, like adrenaline rushes. Get something's about to happen, and when they did slow things down, like it did kind of make sense. They wanted to really show that like the character, he was the main character. It was going to be about him and how he experienced it. So I didn't mind it, to be honest. I agree it was draggy, but I honestly didn't mind it. So I'm gonna go with an 8.
I agree with Yamna. I'll give it an 8 as well. Although I am more lenient with my scoring because although it is a great show, I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's a great show. It's not as great as the hype that we are getting for it says it is.
I think the hype comes out of only the first episode because most of the memes
Yes.
that we see are from Red Light, Green Light, and then
Yeah.
the honeycomb. That's it. After that, you don't really see the memes and all this other hype material that is,
Yeah, more or less that is the case.
Yeah, it's like people watch the first
Personally, for
episode
me,
and they're
I
like,
think
"Oh."
the hype came out of in terms of content. I mean, what's like the theme of the content you usually get out in a year is it's action or it's like rom-com or whatever it is. This didn't really fit into the general themes of things. You don't see a lot of content facing this direction, or even if it's out there, it isn't really brought up. So I think that's why it got a lot of hype. People were like, "Oh, this is something different. It's exciting, and we're into it."
Yeah, I
kind of
agree
like how
with-
like Parasite blew up like last year. Say like similar themes, good plot.
Yeah.
The one thing that this show really gave us was, the Halloween costumes.
There's that too. So apart from like other minor points, like a lot of characters that I actually rooted for, either got little to no development, but that's very minor because considering the situation of the game, that they're focusing more on the game and the story rather than not a lot of character development that happened along the way rather than having focus on it. And that was fine. That's like sit past. The ending was too predictable for me, and because how I usually am with movies, I gave that a leniency because I hate myself to the extent where I actually predict everything nowadays in movies. It pisses me off.
I think we watched too much.
We watched too
But
much.
that is the thing. Like it was predictable for most of us. I mean, from the general, what I'm getting the idea of, many people did see most of these things coming, especially those who have watched Korean dramas. They know what the cliches are. Like they know. Okay.
Here's the thing: I have never seen a Korean drama in my life until now. It's mostly tropes that are in TV shows and movies throughout the years that I've been compiling while I watched this, and the tropes exist everywhere, and it just stood out a little more for me in this series.
Yeah.
So I'm being lenient.
To wrap it up.
Yep. I'm being lenient with the scoring over there on this case because it's usually predictable for me. So I'm still giving it an 8. And with all 4 of our scores, we give it a total 7.75 out of 10. So not a bad score.
It's a
Definite recommend. Definite recommend. Watch it. Yeah.
Definitely recommend to watch it. Yeah, I definitely recommend to watch it. It is a great series. Just don't listen to the hype. Watch it completely blind from the hype. Otherwise, you're going to have high hopes and you're going to just ruin it for you.
And watch episode 2 at 1.5 speed.
I mean, I watched it at regular speed, but okay, that makes sense.
Watch episode 2 in 1.5 speed and watch episode 6 and cry for 2 days. So, so that is it from our side, and this is our review for Squid Game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to comment on what you thought Squid Game was and how you thought the series was in general. And be sure to subscribe to our channel. And we would like to thank our newest member of the team, Yamna, for joining us in this episode. And
Heyo.
that is all from our side. Until then, see you next time.